And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. And today, all up for the buffet. Mr. Randy Wang's at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, we get tons of requests at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com for people to have me send them MP3s of their favorite drops. And usually it's always the classics, right?
That's your final warning.
But today someone wanted an old favorite.
Look at my papaya. It's dried already.
That is a perennial classic.
I missed that one.
Of the new ones, which ones are you getting the most requests for?
Janice, that's your final warning, is definitely the one I've gotten the most requests for this year.
That's your final warning.
Like, that is definitely the front runner when we do our end of the year, drop of the year contest. It's definitely going to be Janice Hahn.
Yet another reason to look forward to Christmas. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a New York Times bestselling author and journalist. You can get him online at jasonmattera.com and follow him on Twitter at Jason Mattera. Jason Mattera, welcome.
Hey, John, great to be on.
Okay, Jason, I need you to explain something to me. If you're running for office and you belong to a country club that doesn't admit women as members, there will be front page newspaper article after front page newspaper article about what a Neanderthal you are. They will compare you to Fred Flintstone and everyone else. Yet there's an organization out there, the Democratic Socialists of America, that has had rallies in major American cities all over the country. New York, San Francisco, Seattle, you name it, they were demonstrating in favor of Hamas using terrorism to kill Jews. And they've done nothing but double and triple and quadruple down on that. We've got 6 members of the House of Representatives who are members of that organization in good standing. 1 quit in protest earlier today. That was a representative from Michigan, so good on them for doing that. The others have not. We have 3 members of the LA City Council who are members, including 1 who just left the council, so 4. We have members of our state legislature who are members of that organization, candidates for office who are members of that organization. Why is it that it's unbelievably toxic to join a golf club that doesn't admit women, but it's no big deal to be a member of an organization that cheers the genocide of Jews?
Well, yes, that's a great point. And also the number of profiles, these breathlessly written profiles over the years, anytime a conservative candidate or politician is a member of some Christian church that holds orthodox views on marriage and gender and sexuality, and that's brought out as a cudgel against them. And yet we have Democrat Socialists of America, and by the way, other groups as well, who have been for years. This is not something like we've been covering politics for many years, and the hatred for the Jew hatred on college campuses, on the left, part of Black Lives Matter. This is something that we've been covering and exposing for many years, but it hasn't reached this level where they are outright celebrating something so horrific. I mean, they're outright celebrating, as you said, the savagery and barbarism of what we saw take place over the weekend, what we're still learning about as the cleanup and the coverage pours in from what has taken place. So they've just been emboldened to go out there and speak this. That's why I really don't care about George Santos. I heard in the lead into the show about the new indictments and everything that's been alleged. I don't care for the guy, and quite frankly, he seems to be a pain in the butt. But this is why I really don't care. Because if we're comparing someone like George Santos to someone like Rashid Tlaib and the others who despise. They hate Israel, and in their heart of hearts are cheering this on because their affinity with an organization that most people and most Americans would find repulsive, and yet they are going to get a pass in the media, and they are going to get a pass from their friends on the left are not going to get the same type of scrutiny, the same type of coverage. I mean, I see, Fox News sent a journalist and asked Rashid Tlaib, it was either yesterday or sometime this afternoon, her thoughts, and, she just kind of glibly keeps on going and has no comment. If it was a conservative in that position, we'd have nonstop, and we still have nonstop attention. We're gonna have, if Donald Trump is a nominee, probably he is. How many times every single day we're going to have some Republican who, some podunk, representation? Oh, Donald Trump said this. What do you think? And yet we will not have that same type of effort put forth for something as affiliations and coalitions as vile as we're seeing with the less hatred, multifaceted hatred for Israel and its supporters. So I think it's something that, all we can do right now is continue to point out. I think there might be somewhat, it was so horrific and so barbaric that you even have in places like, guests on MSNBC, right? They're no friends of conservatives, and they're calling out MSNBC hosts to their face. You even have people like Jake Tapper, CNN, again, no friend of conservative, but he's pointing a lot of these inconsistencies out and wondering why there hasn't been more of a forceful response on the left. So, I wouldn't say the tide is turning per se, but I think we can at least celebrate these small victories where we see them.
You've spent a lot of time speaking on college campuses around the nation. Recently, not only have we seen these rallies in the streets of our major cities, we've also seen them from student groups on college campuses, including yesterday. We had a demonstration in favor of Hamas over at Long Beach State University. If you're the president of that university and your job is to educate these kids so they're the next generation of Americans and they are employable citizens, they can work and they can pay their taxes and they can raise their families, and based on what you're teaching them, this is what they do, you're doing something wrong. If you're the president of a university and you have these demonstrations out on your campus drawing all kinds of negative attention to your campus and the job that you're doing educating them, how would you handle it?
Well, I'd probably shut these campus groups down. When we're talking about what took place and support with Hamas, this is not like a normal free speech debate. Imagine some neo-Nazi group just decides to plop up on campus and is speaking hatred against blacks and talking about how we need to go back to a time of slavery and just vile stuff. Who would tolerate that? They would say no. Like in a civil society, the pluralism that we enjoy, the free speech that we enjoy, has to be undergirded by some semblance of civility and truth. If not, then we see the ramifications where you have this, explicit Jew hatred today. So I think it'd be perfectly reasonable for campus administrators to root out, and it should be pretty easy now to root out the Hamas supporters in their midst, and to say no, we're not going to tolerate terrorist sympathy on our campus. Number one, so I don't even think that would be a free speech issue. It's just, would be more of civilized societies do not tolerate this. Number one. And number two, here's another point. Are these groups, do you think, John, making it on an FBI terror watch list? Because they should. If in the FBI is going, bragging to Newsweek and other places how they have MAGA supporters, right? They're these anti-government folks. They have the Gadsden flag outside. They talk and they quote the founding fathers, and we have to keep an eye on them. We have to keep an eye on their social media habits. We have to keep an eye on them leading up to the next election. And yet, chances are that these people who are marching. And, big rallies, like there was one in Dearborn, Michigan, last time, big rallies, praising Hamas and showing solidarity. Are they making the list? I don't think so. Because, if they would come out there making the list, then we'd hear cries, this is, Islamophobia, and, we can't, and we have to talk about radical Islam and some of these extremist elements and, some of the support coming from Iran and Qatar, and why is the Biden administration playing footsie with some of these terror sponsoring countries around the world. So I think it would put our intelligence agencies in a precarious spot. But if someone should make a terror watch list, like someone's social media habits should be monitored, it should be those who are out there dancing in the streets and waving the Palestinian flag right now, because they are explicitly, not only are they explicitly showing that they're okay with genocide, but when we have Hamas leaders, which came out today and said, this Friday they want Muslims around the world to go ahead and inflict terror, the type of terror that we saw in Israel. They want that to happen around the world because they want Muslim dominance against Christians and non-Christians, and they want one world rule under Allah. When Hamas leaders are saying this, and we have Hamas supporters in the streets, I wonder how many people are actually saying, you know what, maybe we should do this. And this is why we have an FBI. This is why we have a CIA or a multitude of intelligence agencies to monitor this stuff. And yet their focus over the last 2.5 years has been on those frustrated with the integrity of elections and people who may have done a misdemeanor and walked through the Capitol when they shouldn't have.
Well, I'll tell you, it really worries me, given the politicization of all of our intelligence agencies, whether it's the FBI, the CIA, whatever, because they're all up on the latest of Russia collusion that didn't happen, yet they consistently miss the micro and the macro issues that we pay them to keep an eye on. It doesn't matter if it's 9/11. It doesn't matter if it's the fall of the government in Egypt, or you have a mass shooter at home that put all of their craziness all over social media, red flag city, and they missed all of it. It seems like that's the case time and time and time again. Why didn't someone do something about this? They put it all over Facebook. They put it all over Twitter. They put it all over Instagram, and no one did anything about it. I don't think they're doing their job. I don't think they're performing the basic duties of why those agencies exist. And unless and until someone in the executive branch reins them in, I don't think they have any intention of doing their job.
Yeah, sadly, I agree with that assessment. I mean, the government is so large and vast that it is neglecting its primary responsibility. The primary responsibility is not to provide people jobs. The primary responsibility for government is not to be a welfare state. The primary responsibility is not to be doling out food stamps or trying to micromanage cow belching and gas stoves and forcing everyone into an electric. That's not the primary. The primary duty of government is knowing that we live in a hostile world. There are hostile actors. And the primary duty of government is to keep us safe, both home and both abroad. And they are failing miserably. And I fear if there is another attack on our country, similar, well, it doesn't have to be similar in scope to 9/11, but if it were similar in scope, we'd probably just get another government agency out of it, like we did after 9/11. We got the Department of Homeland Security. I remember back then, and I was still in college at the time, but there were debates even among conservatives, like, do we really need another government department to handle what should have been happening already amongst the federal government, the different agencies that already existed? And it seems like any time there's a tragedy, that what we will inevitably get is another government program to supposedly, plug a loophole or tackle an issue, and instead of actually addressing some of the causes that are out there and making sure the government is actually more lean and more efficient and using the money more wisely and not being politicized to the degree it is now, there's always going to be intelligence failures. I mean, humanity is not perfect, right? We don't live in a utopia, so there's always going to be some type of failure. But the issue is we don't trust that they have their eye on the mark and their eye on the ball. So every time Christopher Wray is testifying, he wants to leave early, jet off to his vacation home, or he's a little squirrely about Antifa and Black Lives Matter, or his agency monitoring Catholics who may attend Latin Mass. Gasp! Oh no, can't have that. It seems like his eye is on the wrong place when it comes to these issues. So when there is an intelligence failure, it's magnified even further, because you say, look, you haven't been actually following what you should have to keep Americans safe, and instead you've been chasing all these other rabbit holes because it would help your people politically and not help the country maintain its safety.
You look at the globe. You have Russia in Ukraine now. You have Hamas in Israel. You have China breathing down the neck of Taiwan. How much of this do you think is a function of perceived weakness in the United States and Joe Biden's senility?
Oh, all of it. I mean, none of this happened. Donald Trump had a lot of faults. He had a lot of character flaws. But none of this happened until Joe Biden became president. In fact, you had historic peace accords with Israel and the Abraham Accord, Israel and other Muslim nations, and that would have continued and proliferated, and it really would have put the Palestinians and Iran in a corner because Saudi Arabia, the other Muslim countries do not like Iran and do not like the destabilization it causes. Russia didn't invade Ukraine until Biden was president. We know China's posture towards Trump's posture towards China, so chances are I don't think they would have been as aggressive or hawkish on Taiwan as they are now. I mean, this is not that America should be involved in every international we can't, right? We can't be in every international conflict. We can't be sending troops abroad all the time. But there was always a balance that you played, in that when there is a lack of leadership in the world, we see that the world starts to break off into different factions that coalesce and have nefarious motives. And American leadership traditionally has always been to try to, put a block on that where possible. And this is a delicate balance, of course, because you don't want to instigate stuff unnecessarily, and you don't want to be spending sending American soldiers over unnecessarily, like we did with Iraq and Afghanistan for so long, and spending from our treasury. But with Joe Biden, you don't have to hand over the treasury to them either. You don't have to go over and say, we're going to actually unfreeze these sanctions and allow you to start selling even more oil, like you're doing with Iran. They unfreeze the $6 billion, and money is fungible. And they say, oh, yeah, pinky swear we're not going to use it for terrorism, Joe. Yeah, right. We don't have to be sending billions in aid to the Palestinians, which inevitably get back to Hamas. I mean, they're just normal, John, common sense steps that an American president who understands the reality on the ground that would take without getting us entangled into different wars. These actors like Putin and China's dictator, for all these folks, they respect. Trump was right. They respect strength. These guys are despots and tyrants, and they look at someone like Joe Biden, and they don't probably have any respect for him. I don't even think they think he's running the show over there. The guy can barely walk up a flight of stairs or barely speak with a complete sentence. I'm not trying to make fun of our president, but they see what we see on a daily basis, and certainly that doesn't inspire confidence. If it doesn't inspire confidence in us, it definitely inspires action on their end. And we're seeing. Obama once said that Joe Biden messes everything up. Obama was a little more colorful in his language, but he was absolutely right. And Joe Biden has stepped into a place that Trump left him in a good position on foreign policy, and in 2.5 years has completely bungled a global scene.
Jason Mattera. You can follow him on Twitter at Jason Mattera. Thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, John. Take care.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to that interview that we just did with Jason Mattera, you can do that, and you only have to wait until 3:01.
That's right. If you download the KABC AM app, it's the easiest way to listen live whenever you want, wherever you want. Even if you're outside the AM radio signal, you can stream anywhere around the world. It also has the podcast, so all the podcasts of this show are available. And at 3:01, I will have posted this 2 o'clock hour with that interview with Jason Mattera, where you can hear such insightful wisdom as this.
That's why I really don't care about George Santos. And I heard in the lead into the show about the new indictments and everything that's been alleged. I don't care for the guy, and quite frankly, he seems to be a pain in the butt.
There you have it. George Santos is a pain in the butt.
He's a little more than that.
It's Woo Wednesday.
Ric Flair.
It's Woo Wednesday. Yeah, baby. Woo, 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 woo.
And Randy, that means tomorrow is Throwback Thursday.
That's right. The phones are open. If you've got a suggestion for the music that we're going to play on tomorrow's show, your favorite artist, genre, theme, something creative, something you wouldn't expect to hear on AM radio, something fun, give us a call right now. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, because one lucky listener is going to get to pick all the music for Throwback Thursday. So if you want to play, now's the time. 800-222-KABC.
It is Woo Wednesday.
Ric Flair, let's hear it one more time.
It's Woo Wednesday. Yeah, baby. Woo, 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 woo.
And Randy, that means tomorrow is Throwback Thursday.
That's right. And this week's winner is Michael. Michael, what do you want to hear on Throwback Thursday?
I think we need to hear some Steely Dan. We need more Steely Dan.
The world does need more Steely Dan.
Well, they're appropriate for the times. We've got Don't Take Me Alive. We've got Ricky, Don't Lose That Number. There's a few that kind of match what we're going through right now.
You know, let me tell you, Michael, I went to a Steely Dan concert. This is about 5-6 years ago with free tickets from KABC at the Greek Theater. And there were joints being passed around on both sides of me.
Well, you received things from both ends, I understand.
I did receive things on both ends that night.
I received things on both ends.
You got it. Steely Dan. People can email their Steely Dan suggestions at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Michael, thanks for the suggestion.
You got it. Take care.
And here I thought that just happened at the Grateful Dead concerts.
Oh, boy. The Steely Dan fans, they know how to go for it. They don't go as hard as the Parrot Heads, but they enjoy themselves.
All right. Well, we don't say this too often anymore, but Arnold Schwarzenegger popped up.
What's Arnie doing now?
He's on the Rob Lowe podcast.
Oh, he's been doing the rounds because he's got another new book.
Arnold has a new book?
Yes. It's called Be Useful or something like that. He's very motivational these days. He even does his own podcast, and he does a workout video.
Well, if he's promoting the book, who wrote it?
I mean, Arnold would say that Arnold wrote it.
No. No.
You don't find it realistic that he wrote a motivational book about, you know, being a self-starter and how you've got to apply yourself?
Well, maybe he popped in some old tapes and told some professional writer to take what he said and finesse it into a book. Or maybe he just had the guy show up to his house when he's on the exercise bike or pumping iron.
Stop whining.
He just talked the whole time. Zero chance he sat at a computer and wrote a book. Zero.
So you think there's an Arnold Schwarzenegger ghostwriter?
100%. In fact, I don't want to get sued, so I don't know how to say this properly.
Well, I can always dump it.
There are personalities on television, let's say, who have a platform. They're on TV, on popular programs, but they're not professional writers. They do not have the skill set to write a book. So what they do is they go out and they hire a professional writer to write the book, and typically they pay them additionally to keep their name off the book. Sometimes it says so-and-so movie star with professional writer. However, if you're presenting yourself as, let's say, a political pundit or a host or whatever, and the audience assumes that you write your own materials, you don't want to include a ghostwriter on the cover of your book. So you pay them additionally to not be mentioned at all. And I know someone who wrote one of these books for one of these television personalities that then got caught up in a massive scandal. Massive scandal. and they lost their television show and their platform to sell the book. And they stiffed my friend, the ghostwriter.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. No payday.
Well, so far, this book, it's called Be Useful. It's got very good reviews on Amazon. This one's my favorite. It's fantastic. Get it. Do it. Do it now. Don't be a schnitzel. Add it to the cart.
So during this promotional tour on the Rob Lowe podcast, he was asked why he's still a Republican, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is a registered Republican, but essentially sides with the Democrats on virtually everything. He didn't start out that way. That's where he ended up. So the question is, why are you still a Republican?
Okay, let me ask you this, and I ask people this all the time. David Dreyer, a good friend of ours.
Of ours, yeah.
Yes, and a good man. Served for many, many, many years. He used to have the greatest what makes me a Republican, and he had, I think, 4 or 5 things. I think it was, in no particular, strong military, low taxes, less government, more personal freedoms. There might have been a couple, but it makes sense to know
strong law enforcement.
And then I'd like to know I always ask Democrats what it means to be a Democrat in that way. And I think whatever anybody would say,
ruin your cities.
What would they say?
Ruin your cities.
What's that?
Ruin your cities.
Ruin your cities.
That's what the Democrats would say. Be about ruining the cities. We want the every city in America.
Oh, boy.
We want the every city in America. That's what it seems to be the theme right now.
Why is that?
I have no idea.
He's not wrong.
Well, he might still have a bee in his bonnet when the city of L.A. went to war with him because he was trying to fill his own pothole.
That's right. He went through the proper channels, could not get the pothole filled, and eventually said, screw it, I'm going to do it myself.
We want the every city in America.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
I forgot to play bumper music, so let's have Ulysses do it.
Are we going to get it? Are we going to get it? Are we going to get it? Are we going to get it?
It's 2:51 on the John Phillips Show, Talk Radio 790 KABC. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you are monitoring the mailbag.
Sean writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com with the subject line QF. I swear for the rest of my life I will get tickled and giggle every time I hear someone say, quite frankly, you're the best.
Quite frankly.
I'll tell you this, no one does it better than Holly Mitchell.
Quite frankly.
That is the gold standard of QFs.
And she drops it every other sentence or so.
Quite frankly.
It's a contest. At Board of Supervisors meetings, I actually got turned on to it from Catherine Barger.
Quite frankly.
And that's when I realized that people say that and it means nothing. But then as soon as I started paying attention to the Board of Supervisors meetings, I noticed Holly does it better than anyone.
Quite frankly.
I'm going to an event tonight with Catherine Barger. I wonder if she'll give me one tonight.
Quite frankly.
I hope so.